They formed back in 1993. In that time, they've had a love-hate relationship with the British music press, and they've had to constantly fight off those comparisons with the Smiths. This year has seen the release of a new album, Drawn to the Deep End. That's in the shops now, and they're currently out on a UK tour. We've come to Southampton to get the lowdown on Gene. A new year, a new album, a new tour. What's been the reaction back so far on this tour to the new songs then?
Well, one of the nice things with that is that I noticed a few gigs ago, people are coming along now, just heard Fighting Fit and We Could Be Kings, and they don't know the names of the people in the band, and they're not interested, and they probably got it alongside Mariah Carey, and I think that's quite healthy. We're sort of sneaking in the back door now, which I approve of. But, I mean, the tour's gone exceptionally well.
And the reaction to the songs as well, Matt?
Well, there's definitely been, there's always going to be a hardcore element of Gene fans that will learn the lyrics in the first day. And we're finding a lot of people at the front know the whole album, you know, completely. As Martin said, there is a lot of people that have discovered us in the last few months, which, you know, we're really happy about. But, I mean, it has been a bit of a celebration, this tour. So we haven't really toured this country properly for a while, so it's been nice to get out there.
Well, what's Gene like on the road? I mean, is it, you know, sex, drugs and rock and roll? Or...
Yes, it is, Barry.
Completely.
Can I have one of each, please? No, but seriously, I mean, you know, what is Gene like on the road? I mean, sort of, like, you know, to describe it to us.
Well, I don't know. Increasing bags under the eyes. We're on a tour bus this time. We haven't got the let's go back to the hotel and let's bring half the audience with us and trash the whole place sort of vibe. So, I mean, after the gig, we have to get on a bus and go somewhere else overnight and sleep on sort of coffin-style bunks. But we just mess around on the bus until about 4 in the morning and wake up in a new town, really.
What does playing live mean to Gene? You know, I mean, how important is it? How does it fare with being in the studio, Martin?
I think it's actually essential to our well-being. I mean, just speaking personally, I love it. The only thing that beats it is writing songs. But we have a curious and almost uncanny contact with the fans. They're a lot closer than the barrier would suggest, I think. And we like to meet people, you know. We're not particularly po-faced, and I think the fans appreciate that. I mean, I don't even like calling them fans. It sounds a bit sort of patronising. But, they're followers and disciples, I think. Here comes the pompous arrow, and it's settling over my head.
I mean, the second album, you know, has gone down in you know, pop folklore as being normally the difficult second album. Martin, was this an album that was enjoyable to make?
I'd say, well, so probably 80–90% of it was. It wasn't particularly hard. I mean, we've never stopped writing anyway. I mean, I think what happens with a lot of bands is they write for 5 or 6 years in sort of various bedrooms, and the cumulative effort of that becomes their first album, and they suddenly realise that they've got to do that 6-year work in 1 year, and find it hard. But for us, it was never really a problem. So no, it wasn't a particularly difficult record. I mean, it wasn't all. It wasn't quite a roller coaster ride, but it had its moments.
Now, you've brought in Chris Hughes, ex-drummer with Adam and the Ants, as producer on this album. What's he brought to Gene?
One of the reasons we got him in is because we knew he could get a huge drum sound for a start. So
and you're the drummer, aren't you?
Yeah, well, he knows...
And a huge vocal sound as well.
Yeah, he knows how to get big live sounds in the studio. And we met him, and we just sort of... he had a great sense of classicism about his knowledge of music, and was no pushover as well. We had to battle with him quite a lot, but it was beneficial for us, I think.
The Smiths are a band who, I know, here we go. Let's get this one out of the way very, very quickly. I mean, you know, they're a band that are sort of like, you know, constantly, you know, mentioned around the band. I mean, does that irritate you a bit? That, say, you know, other bands like, you know, Oasis can sort of like, you know, cite their influences and maybe not get as, you know, half as much stick about it?
What do you think? No, I mean, I'm going to make a point here, but I'm interested. What do you think the connection is?
What as far as the Smiths comparisons are concerned? I mean, I think it's easy to sort of like say that, you know, your voice isn't a million miles away from Morris's. You know, I guess you're sort of like working essentially within the same framework as well. I mean, but what about you? I mean, you know, what
Well,
do you think?
I mean, this is the thing. We've never actually denied that they were one of 100, 150 influences, however many there are. It's just the fact is that they only now really get mentioned in relation to the fact that we used to be compared to them. And that's the only mention that happens. So, yeah, I mean, it gets a little tiring. I mean, you can imagine that it does. It's a ball and chain, and it's getting rusty now, and it's about to drop off, thankfully.
With every well, you talked recently, you know, very candidly and openly about, you know, this bout of clinical depression. Why did you decide to do that?
It was a curious decision to make, actually. It had been something I'd been toying with for a long while. I read a book by...
A likely story.
Yes. Yes, pop star in literacy shock. I read a book by Spike Milligan and a doctor called Anthony Clare. And Spike Milligan suffered from depression for about 40, 50 years now. And I found it a great help. He had a lucidity that I certainly don't have, and ways of expressing what had happened to him were, in a way, almost became crutches for me. And I thought if the position of responsibility you have, you know, being in a band and being in a fairly successful band, I thought I could return that to a few more people. And I'm quite glad, in a way, that a lot of people have come back, and I've had a lot of letters saying, you know, thank you for saying this. And they're worth 500 times. They're 500 times more valuable to me than the odd dissenting voice accusing me of trying to sell records because of it.
How important is it to sort of, like, you know, be up there riding high in the charts?
It's a really curious battle that we have between the fact that, yes, we want to be successful, but B, not at any cost. And it's really hard because I love bands like The Fall, who, you know, rarely had top 40 hits, but to me they were my pop stars. And the sad thing is that the media now and the so-called alternative press as well, which has in a way been a hunting ground, at least so far. I mean, I'm glad that we're stepping out of that now. Are becoming more and more chart obsessed. And you find yourself in a very difficult position of not wanting to go on every single TV program, you know, dressed up as a chicken talking to Nobby the sheep, just to sell a few more records and get yourself those 3 places higher. But having to balance that out with the fact that, yes, we want to be, I won't deny, we want to be in the top 10. We want to be there, you know, kicking Bryan Adams to death. Lovely fellow though he is, I'm sure.
So I guess Fighting Fit, in a way, you know, not only an apt title, but, you know, a pretty important song as far as, you know, Gene were concerned, and, you know, what was happening at that time as well.
Well, I'm sort of, in a way, sort of loath to draw too many comparisons. I mean, simply title-wise, that Gene came out with a single called Fighting Fit, and somehow it's a statement of intent about the band. I mean, we could have released Where Are They Now as the first single, and you know, I hope you wouldn't have been asking the same question. As a song, it was important because I think it was the first time we actually recorded, you know, inverted commas, a rocker, and it genuinely worked. It had real life. It had the sort of spirit of Slade and The Who and a sense of vibrancy about it. And for that, it's going to, I think in our own little personal history at least, it's going to become quite a landmark.